We're looking at photos here taken by Jim Oatley, who's a staff member here at Alice Springs Desert Park. My name's Lisa and I work on the zoology section here at Alice Springs Desert Park. This bird we're looking at here is a singing honeyeater. It's one of our most common honeyeater species in Central Australia. We don't have these in captivity here at the Desert Park, but they're very common on the grounds of the park. This bird here is feeding in a honey grevillea, which is a very sweet tasting plant, and you can find these plants in our sand country habitat. When they're in flower, they attract all sorts of species of bird, in particular honeyeaters, and it's one of the best places to birdwatch on the park when those things are in flower. This honeyeater here is a grey-headed honeyeater. It's one that we're lucky to see here in the wild at the Desert Park. They typically stick to areas around the range country. They like to live up in hilly areas, rocky areas, often up on top of the escarpment. And being right at the base of the range here at Desert Park, these birds will often come down off the range to feed in our mallee when it's flowering, and also some of the grevilleas and hakeas around the park. You can see these birds in some of our aviaries here at Desert Park. They breed quite well in captivity. This bird is a white-plumed honeyeater. It's one of the most commonly seen honeyeaters around Alice Springs. It's a fairly aggressive species and it tends to hang out in groups, mobs, and although it's smaller, because it has numbers on its side, it can often keep out competitors. So it tends to occupy resource-rich areas, such as along creek lines and riverbeds. So this is a bird you'll commonly see in the desert rivers habitat here at Desert Park, and also if you're out in the bush, if you walk any creek bed, riverbed, you'll often see these quite noisy and aggressive honeyeaters hanging around the trees. Now, this beautiful honeyeater is probably our most lovely looking honeyeater in Central Australia. The species is called a black-chinned honeyeater, but in Central Australia we actually call it Goldenback honeyeater because the subspecies that we get here has that beautiful golden colour down over the back, and it's a much nicer name for it than black-chinned honeyeater. It's also got that beautiful fluorescent green crescent above its eye, and it's not a honeyeater very commonly seen in Central Australia. Sometimes you will find them around the ranges in areas where there's good flowering woodland, but definitely not a common species. They tend to be more common as you head further north up towards the top end. We do have a number of these birds in our Desert Rivers walk-through aviary here at Desert Park, and they adapt very, very well to captivity. You might get a chance to have a very close encounter with them. The females are often very enthusiastic with collecting nesting material, and sometimes they'll actually fly down to visitors' socks or their heads to collect fibres and hairs to use in their nests.